Okay. Now, yes.
I just have to find my
You have to
presentation.
let everybody in, of course.
There it is.
I'm going to put up a gallery view. Oh, I don't.
Oh, why did that do that? There we go.
Welcome. We're still just, are we settled? Everyone? People are just dribbling in, so we'll admit them. And Procha, are you admitting people? Okay. All right. So, welcome everyone. It's really nice to see all of you, those of you who I can see, and some very familiar faces, and some new names and even faces. Let me introduce myself. My name is Ellen Schwartz, and I'm the coordinator of the Bergen County chapter of CHADD. For those of you who don't know, CHADD is a national nonprofit that offers education, information, and support to those living with ADHD. We are a chapter based in Bergen County, although now that we are doing Zoom, people from all over the country are welcome to join us. What we offer is a speaker series once a month, and that meets the first Monday of each month. And I have to tell you, we're scheduled. We have speakers all the way through, I think it's January 2022, which is just amazing. So we have a speaker the first Monday of every month from 8 to 9:15. And we also offer 3 support groups. One is an adult support group, and that meets on the 3rd Monday of every month. It's run by Isabel Ibrahimi, and that's 7:30 to 8:30.
Ellen, do you want me to put up the, you want me to share my screen with the information while you're talking?
That would be perfect. Thank you. Oops. So you just, so okay. So what happened was my notes just disappeared. Anyway, and then so here's this some upcoming speakers. And if you would like to read more about speakers that we have scheduled or read more about these speakers, you can check out our website, which is www.chadd.net/chapter/545. Now, I started to talk about the support groups, and we have 2 support groups for parents of children with ADHD. The pre-K through 6th grade group meets the 2nd Wednesday of each month from 8 to 9:15, same time as this meeting. And the one for parents of teens meets the 4th Wednesday of each month. And the groups are run by Joni Korn and Andrea Elram, both of whom are wonderful, knowledgeable, and warm and inviting. So please consider joining one of our support groups. So without further ado, Joni, could we lose your screen for a second? I just want to do a little housekeeping. In terms of the chat, you're more than welcome to put any questions you have in the chat. Leslie will answer them as she either sees them or she will save them for the end of the talk. Please just use the chat for questions as opposed to interacting with one another. You will all be muted, and please stay muted. And I think that's all I have for now. So I want to welcome, we are so excited to have Leslie Josel speaking for us. She's an ADHD academic and parenting coach. She founded Order Out of Chaos, which is a virtual company whose mission is to help parents guide their students to success and learning and in life. And I think, Leslie, I think you started this when your son was first diagnosed with ADHD, and you can talk about that a little bit.
Talk a little bit, just a little.
Oh. She's also an award-winning, she created an award-winning academic planner, a tool for time management. And this is a planner that helps students develop time management skills. She's the author of 3 books. The most recent one is, I guess, the topic of tonight, How to Do It Now Because It's Not Going Away, an expert's guide to getting stuff done. She's a respected resource on ADHD and executive functioning. Leslie also writes, is it a weekly or a monthly column?
It's a weekly column.
A weekly column in ADDitude Magazine. Dear ADHD Families Speaks Coach. Wait, Dear ADHD Family Coach. And she also speaks worldwide when she's not in the middle of a pandemic, although it is offered to others. So with no further ado, with great excitement and enthusiasm, Leslie Josel, welcome.
Thank you guys. Thank you so much, first of all, for having me. I know this is going to sound funny, but I've spoken to Chad many times, but I really prefer the chapters. Before we came on, I was talking about, like, there's just this, it promotes dialogue and conversation and intimacy. And I think as those of us with ADHD, those of us maybe are parents or educators, I think that's what we all crave. So thank you for having me. I have a few housekeeping things of my own as we get started. So have you guys hit, I have to hit record? Do I have to hit record, or you can record?
No, we're recording.
Okay, I want to make sure everybody knows that we are recording, and they are going to get the recording, right? They will be able to.
No, we're gonna post the recording on the website,
That's what I meant.
on our website, but everyone at the end of the talk will get a copy of your PowerPoint.
Perfect, good. Because I like that. This way you're not running and you're sitting here writing, that you can sit back and absorb and really take in the information, because you will have a chance to watch it again. The chat function is there for you. Absolutely drop in your questions. I am going to try to get through the presentation first and then take your questions. And then here's something I would love you all to do. I am very happy to give away 2 copies of the book, How to Do It Now. I'm going to handle that. So my email address is right here on this slide. If you just email us and just put book in the subject line, what will happen is someone on my team is just going to pick 2 random winners. We'll notify you by email, and then you will get a copy of the book. So that's how we're going to play that one. All right. So before we go on, I want to just tell you a little bit more about myself and also about my company, Order Out of Chaos. Yes, we are virtual, we are global, we are very robust. People come to us for all sorts of things: products and programs, workshops, webinars, coaching, again, to help your students be successful in learning and in life. And I think the life piece is what I really focus on, because a lot of what we talk about and what we're going to talk about tonight is, I really look at them as life skills. They're really not just school skills. So I invite you to check us out, come to our website. There's so much unbelievable content there for you. Yes, I do write the Dear ADHD Family Coach column. It is a weekly column. It is on the digital website for ADDitude. And again, I invite you to check those out too. I've written, I think, 170 of them at this point. Crazy, I know. But I love it. And what I like about it, it's not just parents and students. We talk about any kind of family relationship you might be having. So again, I invite you to either check them out on ADDitude, or you can come to our website because they're all there as well. Okay. This is the book, and I'm showing you this because this is really what tonight's talk is going to be about. I'm going to be taking I'm trying to say a deeper dive, but again, we only have about 15 minutes, 45 minutes. But what I wanted to tell you about this book is that what I love so much about it is that it really comes from your student's perspective. It is written to the student. So it is, yes, parents are reading it so that they understand what could be getting in their student's way, why their student procrastinates, kind of so they have a front row seat. But it's really written for the teen and college student. It's written in my voice, my student's voice, and to them. So we're going to kind of take a peek inside, and I'm going to give you a lot of intel that I hope is going to help you with your own student. Okay, so let's get started. So the last name on this slide might sound familiar to you. And so my son, and just as a little FYI, a little fun fact, I started my company when my son was 5 years old, because he was diagnosed with ADHD and a whole host of other things. So he is actually going to be 23 on Wednesday. So it's been a long journey and a really, really good one. So about a couple of years ago, I was doing mostly what all of you do. Yes, I'm a coach, and I have to still check myself at the door when it comes to my own kids. But I was probably nudging or nagging or doing something, one of those N words. And this was what my son's response to me was. And for me, it really was the aha moment. It encapsulated almost everything that I hear from my student coaching clients, that they literally sit right on that fence. And at any given moment, at any given time, no matter what it is, they could either go to this side or that side. The opportunity to get something done versus an opportunity not to. And it also realized that this is probably the number one thing that we hear about and talk about within the Order Out of Chaos community, that procrastination bug. Why does my kid procrastinate? Or the opposite, that they just, we're parents, we do complain about it. So I felt like this was like my aha moment to try to dig deep and figure out, okay, what is going on? Let's dig in and really, really figure it out. And I know before we even get started, a couple of things I like to say. Never do I ever talk in absolutes, because this is absolutely not a one size fits all community, not a one size fits all child by any means. I know there's a lot of ages and stages. And I don't know the ages of your children. So what I'm hoping is, as I move through this presentation, you're going to pull out a few nuggets. Some of them you're going to be like, oh my goodness, that is amazing, and I want to work on that right away. Others you might just throw out and say that would absolutely not work for my student, and that's fine. So understand that I'm just going to be giving you lots and lots of little things to think about, to marinate on, and to implement. And I hope that you really walk away with like a few that are like your golden ticket. Okay. So to know me is to know that I am a casual, fun speaker. I hope so. I hope it's coming through. But I like a good definition. I'm an organized girl, right? I need a definition to get myself going. Now, this is my definition. This might not be yours. There's millions of definitions out there. But this definition I felt was super important, particularly when it comes to working with students. Because here's what I see, that where we tend to stop the definition is that true procrastination is the act of putting something off, period, end of sentence. We don't bring in that knowing there's a negative consequence. So for me, when I work with my students, this is the one that I use with them. This is the one that I get the buy-in on, that there has to be a negative consequence. And here's why. There's a few things. Number one, it's that being on that fence. So here's a very simple example. When I coach students, we have our like typical appointment, but I do a tremendous amount of check-ins during the week. And sometimes the student will text me back right away, and sometimes it takes them days. And that's okay, we work on that. But my point is, when I ask them what it is about my texting them that prolongs them, or they might be procrastinating or responding to me versus let's say a professor or a boss, their response is that they know that it's like where they sit on that scale, where they sit on that continuum, that a boss or a professor has a much, much more negative impact or consequence on them if they don't, versus me. Bottom line, there is no real consequence if they don't text me back. So there it is. For better or worse, good or bad, consequences matter. And they really matter with your students. I use the word calculating, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean that in the, where am I? What can I get away with? What do I need to do now? What can wait? It's a lot of calculation, and that consequence piece of it takes center stage. The other story I want to tell you, and I think this is a really important story. And again, the other thing, I tell a lot of stories. I don't mean in any way to be disrespectful when I tell them. I'm not disparaging parents. I am one. I think we can all see ourselves sometimes in these stories. So it's not likely for me to, I don't do it often, coach a student and a parent together. And this was actually a few years ago. And I had the parent and the student on together, and it was a long weekend. I don't remember which one. And the student was 16, and he had something due like the Monday night at 11:59. And it was Friday afternoon. And the parent was like, I don't understand. He has time now. Like, why isn't he working on it now? Like, he should do it now, right? He should do it now. He has time. And the student very quietly turned to his mother and said, it happened to have been his mother, and said, you can yell at me at midnight on Tuesday and not a minute before. Because you wanted me to work on it Friday doesn't work for me. I have my plan. I know when I'm going to do it. And it turned out that he did do it on Sunday, locked himself in. Now, I know that doesn't always happen. And I know that that's a simple answer, but it's really used more to show you why I really, really use that negative consequent piece in my definition. Okay. Quickly, so how big a problem is it? So I thought this was interesting to bring you. We did a lot of research. Over 50% of the population has a chronic problem. What I do want you to know is that that number includes adults. It's not just teens in there, and chronic being the operative word. What does that mean? That the procrastination has a true impact, right? It has a real impact on life, on work, on relationships, finance, what have you. It gets worse as we get older. I think we can all figure out why. That scaffolding and support kind of lessens or goes away, or that nudging is just not there anymore. And that 80 to 95% of college students procrastinate on a regular basis. But I want to I just want to bring up that that is not my definition of procrastination, that they just feel that putting something off or doing it later means that they are procrastinating. Okay, so here's what I want to do next for you. I'm going to do a couple of these slides, and then I'm going to get into some tips and tools and things that my students say really works for them. So here's what I want to tell you. When I sat down to write this book, I didn't want to just write a book. I wanted to go back and actually question my students. So I've been doing this for about 10 years now. Not every student was available, but we sent out a pretty extensive questionnaire. We asked them some fun questions too. In fact, in the book, there's something called Classroom Confessionals, where we really dive deep and ask them, like, what's the best grade you got for something you never worked on? Like things that students really like to talk about. But then we asked them some real questions. And obviously the biggest one was, why do you think you do? Why do you think you procrastinate? So I just want to make clear that what I'm bringing you here is not research, it's my research. It's the Leslie's, culmination of hundreds of students saying, these are my reasons. So I don't think this one is any surprise to anybody. But what might be a surprise is that I see that this is usually the number one reason I hear from parents, or the perception that this is the reason. But my students don't think time is their biggest reason. It might be like maybe number 3. And maybe you might be a little surprised to hear what their first one is, but no time sense. I think we all kind of understand what that means. The getting started for them is too difficult or overwhelming. I call this my student, my TOO. things are just too big, too vague, too much, just too. So if something is just too difficult or overwhelming, getting started, very difficult to do. No structure or immediacy. I think we know that too. There's something that they have to figure it out on their own, that there's little scaffolding. There's not a deadline right in front of them. So again, that initiating piece, much harder for them. Too many decisions. And when I've given this before, this has been the biggest aha moment, because I don't know if this is one that we focus on too much. I think this is the one that, you know, really doesn't come to light. And this is one I hear all the time. So if your student has a lot of decisions to make and they can't make them, that activation piece is really going to be non-existent. If they don't have a roadmap to follow, if they don't have clear instructions laid out for them, something as simple as, what do I need to study? How am I supposed to do that? What am I supposed to do? All of those kinds of questions completely derail them. And when I actually talk a lot with them about this, I actually use two examples, and I actually use adult examples. So one of them is like, how does decision making affect them? So I know this is going to sound funny now, but let's pretend it's pre-COVID and you got a wedding invitation. A wedding invitation is the best thing for anyone when they really have either decision fatigue or a hard time making decisions. Think about it. You get a wedding invitation. It tells you where to go, when to go. It even tells you how to dress, right? Sometimes it tells you, you don't have to think even, oh, okay, black tie, that's easy. I have the dress in the closet. Sometimes it even tells you what you're going to eat. And if you have that really organized friend, they'll send you that email and say, I'm collecting money for the gift. Venmo me. You're done. No decisions, easy for you to activate. But now think about the fact that you might just want to go to a movie. Again, this is super pre-COVID, but this is what my kids tell me. Even going to a movie requires so many decisions. I want to go with Suzanne, but then I have to invite Renee. Do I have dinner before, dinner after? You know, are they going to want this? What movie do we see? And what happens is they end up on the couch watching Netflix. Now, I give you that because, and I think that's really important, because that's not even something, that's a low-hanging fruit. That's not like I have to study for an exam or I have to write a paper. So if that roadmap is not there and they have very difficult time making decisions, that activation piece is going to be directly affected. Okay, this is actually the number one reason that I get from my students, that they just don't understand what it is sometimes they have to do. And so that's what I this is my sweet spot in the sense of what I do, that skill-based coaching, that really trying to hone skill. Because bottom line, if your student doesn't know how to study, if your student doesn't know how to plan, all that just go do it, or why aren't you working harder, is not going to happen. That's where the frustration piece lives and all that. So this is really the number one for me. And this is what I hear from my kids, is that no understanding piece. And I think this is something that we do need to like talk more about and dive a little bit deeper into. Okay, this is, I call this my emotion slide. Remember, this is them. They're too boring. I just wanted to kind of bring it in. Okay, one more quick, and then we're gonna go on in. So this is how I explain it to them. I do not, and to parents too. This is not just for students. We do a lot of work with parents at Order Out of Chaos. I don't believe that procrastinating necessarily makes you a procrastinator, right? So interestingly enough, I always ask my kids, like, well, what do you get up for? Tell me what you get up for. So just this morning, literally working with a student who is a trombonist, and he practices 3 hours a day, every day. Does not matter. He doesn't need to be nagged about it. He doesn't even, well, I'd like him to schedule it, but you know what I mean. He is on it. I have kids that wake up every morning to exercise. I have kids that get to their jobs on time. I have kids that, you know, are heads of clubs and do all the work they need for that. So I like to say that procrastinating, that they're not, and I do this a lot so that they actually feel better about themselves and we can like build on successes. But it's important to understand that procrastinating doesn't necessarily make you a procrastinator, nor does it all look the same. So if you showed up, if you decided last Saturday that you were going to clean out your garage and you woke up and you said it was a beautiful day and the last thing you wanted to be was in your garage, is that procrastination? I don't think so. I really don't. There's no negative consequence unless maybe you're selling your house. And again, nobody is worse for the wear. And then the bottom one, I think I want to stop for a little bit and just slow it down because I think this one is super important. So I was giving a talk last week on executive functioning, and we started talking a lot about sustaining effort and that the perception of where lazy is. Like, is your child lazy or do they have a hard time sustaining effort? And this is what a lot of your students are saying, that this is the perception, is that they're lazy or stupid or weak, and that maybe they really are just having a hard time. Okay. I know that there could be 40 more here, and we could, but the slide got crowded, so I didn't want to add more. But the reason why I bring this to you is that I really believe that procrastination is the mask to a lot of other things that are getting in the way. And not unless you can really figure out what is getting in the way, are things going to change or are things going to happen? So I get told a lot, my student procrastinates, and then when I dig deep and figure out what it is, now some of them are way easier than others to see, and some of them are way easier to obviously work on. It's a lot easier to work on a disorganization than it is a decision fatigue or perfectionism or an overwhelm. But my point isn't that. My point is that it's really, really, really important to kind of like take off the mask and see what else is going on here. All right. I'm assuming mostly everyone here understands executive age. This is a chat group, but I do every webinar we give at Order Out of Chaos, and even every talk I give on these kind of subjects outside of my company, I always talk a little bit about executive age. And I do that because parents come a lot to the table. We do. This is not a good or a bad, but they come with the question of, my child is 16, and therefore they should be able to fill in that blank. They should be able to get out the door in the morning. They should be able to do their homework on their own. And again, I'm not going to go into this because I'm assuming we all know this, but I just feel like there's a, what's the word I'm looking for? There's a mindset here that we have to understand and meet our kids where they live. Okay, so here's how I do this. When I work with kids, this is how I talk procrastination. This is how I talk about the brain. This is just how I bring in tips and tools and things for them to kind of marinate on. And I say it in the way that the brain is a muscle, because it is. And they get it. They're exercise conscious or health conscious, and they get that the brain needs to be exercised, right? The brain needs to be strengthened to get them from this, which I call my 2-pound weight, because that's maybe what their brain can handle right now, right? That's where I know how to do this, but I don't know how to do that. Or I can do X, but I'm not at Y yet. And I want to get them from that 2-pound weight to a 5 to a 10 and so forth. Because by doing that, I can build routines with them. I can build habits with them. I can build roadmaps. But this is how I speak. All right. So here is one of my absolute #1 ways that I not only help to strengthen the brain, but how I also explain it to parents. So we're going to start with time because I love talking about time. I think it is fascinating because a lot of us think it's invisible, yet it's everywhere, right? We talk about it all the time. The other thing to know is I have these little sayings, as you can see, or mantras, and there's a reason I have them. You have to remember, I speak to kids all day long, so I want to teach them and talk to them in a way that it's going to be memorable. I have a kid right now I don't work with him anymore, but every now and then he checks in and he says, I still hear you in my head. I had this little saying with him where I'd say, think forward, think back, make a plan, stay on track. And I would sing it and he's like, I still hear you, I'm at work. And I'm like, think forward, think back, make a plan, stay on track. So there is a reason for some of this because it does stick to your child's brain. So here's what I do all the time. You need to see time to learn how to manage it. And if you hear me say anything tonight, this is what I want you to hear me say, that for your child to truly understand time, feel time, be in time, they need to see it. And I feel sometimes with them, that's where the disconnect is. So how do I do that? I do that, and I know we've heard these terms before, but I'm just showing you like how I kind of interpret them and use them in my work. So we externalize time. And I'm going to tell you something, and I'm going to challenge you all in a really nice way. I'm never rude. I might be feisty, but I'm never rude. But I'm going to challenge you. So I'm in my home office. I'm going to do this for a minute. Okay. So I'm pretty time managed. I'm going to say that. I'm going to say that, you know, I'm Leslie and I am really, really time managed. But I have a wall calendar, a paper planner, a timer, a watch, a phone. Not showing you all these things. And I don't know if you can see behind me. Can everybody see that? There's an analog clock. Okay. So somebody do the math, but I think I just added up 6 things. So I'm in one room of my house. I am pretty time managed. I'm an adult. My time management brain is like really good. And I still have 6 things that help me externalize time. So I'm going to ask you, how are you externalizing time in your home? Now, I know this is for students, but you might even be saying to yourself, how am I externalizing time for myself? Because when we externalize it, we organically internalize it, right? So this is some of you have heard me speak before. This is my number 1, number 2, number 3, like absolute. You have to hang a clock, an analog clock. And I'm thinking everyone here are super smart people. I've had people prior to this say, what is an analog? So that's what an analog is, but I'm assuming everyone here knows it. You have to have an analog in every room your student spends time in, including the bathroom. And I can't see you all, I can't hear you all. Maybe drop that in the chat if you have one. I know I'm being videoed, so we're not going to talk about but the bathroom, essential. And I know we're all friends, but if you have a teen at home, you need 2 in the bathroom, 1 by the shower and 1 by the sink. Okay, you just do. Why analogs? Okay, analog. And here's another fun fact for you. I make this mandatory. There's very few things I make mandatory when working with me. Even my college students have analogs hanging in their dorm rooms, apartments, all over the place. They have to have them because they need to see that sweep of time. They need to see where they live in time. And our digitals, sorry, I'm trying to do a lot of things all at once. There we go. They don't do it. So somebody can play along at home. If I was to pick up my phone right now, it would tell me that it's 8:34. But here's what I say to my kids when they fight me. This is how I get buy-in. Okay, great. It's 8:34. Can you tell me or show me on your phone what 10 minutes from now looks like, or 20 minutes ago? And you can't do that because it only shows you the present. And if your child can't feel time or know where they sit in time, they're going to feel, and we've heard this before, like rocky, unsteady, uncertain. I don't know who says it, but like being in the middle of the ocean unmoored. They can't see anything around them. But here's why an analog, and this is something that after listening to my kids, I had like my own aha moment of why it is so important and why it works. Okay, so follow me for a minute. I'm going to be one of my students. And again, I am not disparaging anybody. I'm not disparaging teachers. This is just your students' brain being tired. Your students staring at that Zoom screen, let's say they're home, they're staring at that Zoom screen, or they're in like a typical classroom setting. And they're listening and listening, and their effort level is like, I'm listening to math. I'm kind of listening to the math. I'm really not listening, but I'm pretending I'm listening to math. I am so not listening to math right now, right? So they're just, oh my goodness, when is this going to end? How much time do I have left? If you share any of this with anyone, any part of this presentation with your kids, share this. The first thing they do is look around. How much time do I have left? And they're looking for something that's going to show them that sweep. So they're going to pause. They're going to say, oh, I have 5 more minutes. I can picture the end. Picturing the end is, I would say, one of the most important things your student needs, not only to, we're going to talk about activating, but also to stay the course. So now they picture the end. They picture done. And here's what happens. They wiggle in their chair, they pick up a pen, they maybe move their book a little bit, anything to re-energize and reconfigure their mind. And now they pace themselves and they get through. Now, again, not everybody, but that pausing, picturing, and pacing is so, so important for them, not only to initiate, but to see done. Okay, ask any one of your kids if seeing done is like it for them, and they will say, I need to see done. They need to see beginning, middles, and end. They need to see where they live. But trust me, seeing the end to be able to be here is super, super powerful. I'm telling you, ask your kids. All right, I'm just gonna take a sip. We talk about done all the time in our work, all the time. Can you see done? Can you visualize done? What does done look like? I start at the end more than I even start at the beginning, because that done piece is super, super motivating, right? It's like starting at the beginning. Like if I gave your kid like, okay, here's the entrance to the forest, knock yourself out, see you soon. Well, what does that mean? I'm not going to tell you. You got to figure it out on your own. Or here's road, here are landmarks to follow. Here's how long, and here's what you're going to see at the end. Which one is your kid likely to do? Now, some kids are like, hey, cool, I like the idea of getting into the forest with no path. I know those kids, but I think you know my point. Okay, let's chat about timers. Please don't drop in the chat about them causing anxiety. I know, trust me, I know. So but here's what I want to chat about, how I use timers. And here's another fun fact. I have a lot of them. A lot of these things I actually learned, believe it or not. I had an amazing professor in college that really taught us like how to work, how to study, how to help us like motivate our time. So a few of these actually come from way, way, way back then. And this was one of them. It was about setting timers or your watch or alarms for anything that was an odd amount, always doing something on the odd. And when I got to, and then I forgot about it for years, and I kind of brought it back years ago when I was working with a student who kind of said like, I like timers, but they're white noise. I forget about them, and we always set them for 20 or 30. And I'm like, you're right. Why? Who wrote that rule? Why do we have to do things on the even? Who wrote that? Whoever said we have to start something at 4? So if you have a student at home, let's say that are young and you're still, involved in like setting times for them, like let's say you've negotiated, okay, homework's going to start, you'll have some time after school, but then homework's going to start sometime around, let's say the 4 or 5 o'clock hour. Instead of it being 5 or 5:20, how about 4 or 4:20? How about 4:07 or 4:17? Or do this for 33 minutes. And there's a reason why it works. Because I don't know about you, but relying on our internal motivation all the time is really not sustainable. So we're always looking for things around us that can provide that for us, that help to lighten that load. And when we do something on the odd amount, right away you're like, well, that's different, that's quirky, that's interesting, and that's the point, right? It's fun, it's funny, it's memorable, it's not boring. So your child's more apt to like, oh, I'm going to remember that, I'm going to do that, as opposed to doing something that's boring that's for 4 or 4:30. So again, a small tip, but a really big one. And if you don't think your older students use it, they do. We do everything at odd amounts, everything. So again, just a little thing to help them like get that internal boost, that internal motivation, and have something else lighten their load. Okay. I'm a big question girl. I ask a ton of questions, and I teach a lot of this. Not only do I teach it to parents, but I also tend to do it with my students. So I'm just going to keep an eye on. Oh, okay, good. We have time. So I happen to really like the question, what is your plan? I mean, I have older kids and I still use that on them because I find it non-nagging, for lack of a professional way of saying it, but it is. And what I like about this question is it's good for an 8-year-old or an 18-year-old. And the reason behind the question is that it really helps with that future awareness piece. It helps that, okay, what comes next? That ordination, like what comes next? What has to happen? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I heard somebody, I thought somebody was asking a question. What is your plan? So if you have a smaller student, if you have a smaller child at home, it can be like, what's your plan after dinner? What's your plan after you take your shower? You see what you're doing there? You're actually getting them to think ahead. You're getting them to start putting maybe routines in place, creating that future awareness. As your student gets older, it could be even a little more complex. So I know you have, 2 tests on Friday and you have theater rehearsal till 9 o'clock at night. What's your plan? Right? It's non-threatening. And again, it allows for that forward piece. I'm going to say this only, and I apologize if somebody's not on mute, can you mute yourself? Because we're hearing a lot of ambient noise. Thank you. Okay. What is the one thing you need to get started? I like that for my overwhelmed students. So that helps to take all of this and bring it here a little bit. It really helps to bring down the overwhelm. What are your priorities today is probably my favorite. And that's a tough one. None of these are going to happen overnight. They take time. But I ask this a lot. I ask this all day today because I coached all day. Not what do you have to do today? Because what do you have to do today is a 2-pound weight, right? There's no rhyme or reason. They're reciting a list. Remember, I'm trying to stretch the brain. I'm trying to strengthen the brain. I'm trying to get the brain to answer questions. What your priorities are changes the game, right? It's now I have to think harder, longer. What's due tomorrow? What's due Thursday? Again, different ages, different stages. You're going to ask it different. You might need prompting. I have a lot to get to. This alone could be its own webinar, but I just want to bring you some things that help to go back to that whole strengthening of the brain. And then what could get in your way? Again, it's taking that holistic approach of, okay, what else might be in your way that you are not seeing? Now, before you ask me, well, what happens with the I don't knows? I like I don't knows. I know I'm a little crazy. I'm a little different. That's fine. I embrace the I don't know. I welcome the I don't know because the I don't know is going to give you intel. The I don't know is going to let you know where there's a break in what they know, right? I have actually, it's funny, I do a lot of work in the schools and a lot of my teachers say they're asking these questions now. And when they find that they're getting the I don't knows, they wrap it back and say, okay, well, do you know you have this? Do you know how to do that? Do you understand? See, which brings me to this question. And that allows them to see where there might be. Remember, we talked about what's getting in the way. That's how you know. Okay. Do you understand? I ask this all day long because it's one thing for your student to answer you, do you know what you have to do? Yeah, I have a test on Friday. Great. Do you understand what it's on? Do you understand how to study? Do you understand what is expected of you? And I know I'm using school things here. So here's an example of what I mean. And again, not disparaging students, but if you ask most students, they will tell you when they get an assignment, like go to page 39 and answer problems 1 through 5. It's very task specific. This is not about academics. This is about, do you understand what is being asked of you to do? Absolutely. I don't need to figure it out. I don't need to be making decisions. Okay, continue study for Friday's exam. Way too much. Now, for the brain that might not be able to do it, there's maybe too much, too not understanding, it's skill-based, and that's where we see the disconnect. So what I'm trying to do here is go from that 2-pound weight, which is the math, to the 5-pound weight, which is how do you understand what it is to do, to continue studying? What do you need to do? What's your plan? What tools are you going to use? all of that good stuff. And I have to tell you, it's hard to like not bring everything into this talk, because again, I do study skills as its own webinar, planning it's its own webinar. So this is a little more just, 36,000 level view of what it means for your student to be able to lift that 2 pound versus that 5 pound. Okay, so you've heard me use the term lighten the load. I use that a lot and my students get it. They understand, like, my brain hurts, my brain is heavy. I need things to help lighten that load. So here are some things that we do. The premise of it for me is what we call external communicators. What else in your world, in your environment, can you bring in that communicates to you what you need to be doing right now? It shares the load with you. So I am all about motivating environments. And true, I don't think a talk goes by, and I give a lot of talks, where somebody doesn't mention my office and says, it's like a nice color and it's bright and cheery. I'm going to do that. It's bright and cheery and it's organized and it's got like pops of color. And granted, you can't see everything. There's a reason for that. I spend, my goodness, and I'm pretty motivated. I'm a pretty motivated person, but I spend about, particularly now since the pandemic, I'm not on the road like I used to be, at least 12 hours a day in this room. It better speak to me. It better, when I open that door, it better say, Leslie, come in here. What are you supposed to be doing right now? Exactly. And if you don't think your student needs that, then, oh my goodness, yes. Motivating work environments are massively important, from everything from like where you put your desk. And this I actually think is really both for adults as well as students. I really do. I think you could do this universally, but everything from where your desk is to the cool tools. What do I mean by cool tools? You would be amazed at what my students say: a pen or a fun notepad or giant sticky, well, this one's written on, giant sticky notes, how that changes their brain to get them activated and engaged. It's a game changer. I know these are simple, but sometimes it is simple. Sometimes it's like, what do I have in my environment that's communicating to me what it is I need to do and where do I need to do it? White noise headphones. If you don't know about Brain FM, I love it. Not every kid wants to listen to music. We're going to talk about music in a minute. Brain FM has sounds that has been like research proven that elevates like for productivity and all that stuff. So check them out. And don't discount aroma and scent. I actually have a candle burning, but a lot of my kids swear by it. They swear by it for 2 reasons. They find it motivating, but they also find it as part of their ritual. Which brings me to this question for all of you. Does your student have a work ritual? So I talk a lot about procrastination in my work, and yeah, I got it. People go, yeah, I get the whole clock thing, and yeah, I know this, and I've heard that. This is not something a lot of us focus on. And I will tell you that my kids, particularly now, and I'm really trying to keep this evergreen, really, really buy into now having what's called a work ritual. What do I mean by that? It's doing something routine that follows them or is prior to them sitting down and getting work done. Because what it does for them is it helps their brain get ready to receive. 2 things. So true, these are things that my students have, again, remember I told you we polled a lot of kids. What do you do? How do you get yourself set up? What's your routine look like? And these are all different things that they do. Now, some of them do 3 of them, some do 5 of them, some just do 1, but all of these are what we call a work ritual. And here's why they understand this, right? They get that if they play a sport, their coach is not just going to say, great, go into the game. There is a ritual that happens before, right? They have to get warmed up before they're allowed to play that soccer game, right? Their theater, they're not going to get on that stage until they've maybe warmed up their body, they've done the warm up or they're warming up their voice. So they get it. They know that they have to warm up their brain to get it ready to go to work. Remember, it's all about that muscle. So all of this kind of also takes that whole what do I do now? A lot of them just sit down and go, okay, time for me to go to work. And that brain is stone cold. So I don't know if you guys can see this, but this is the brain, stone cold. Nothing's going to get in. But when we do these work rituals, I'm getting ready to receive, right? I'm warming up, I'm opening up. And it could even be like prior to class, I'm going to read the PowerPoint that the teacher, or the professor has put up before I walk in. Because again, my brain is stone cold. I've read that PowerPoint. I'm now warmed up and ready to receive information. I am a massive believer in this, about getting them into these roadmaps and routines to help lighten that load, so that I'm taking the decision making, I'm taking that guesswork out of the equation. And I'm helping them not waste that mental energy on this, so that when they do sit down, they can get to work. And along those lines is something that I like to do with them, and I have found it to be massively successful, is separating the setup from the task. This is as granular as it gets. What do I mean by this? I have younger students, middle and high school students, who will come home, put a fork in them, they're done, right? They cannot activate. They've held in their stomach all day at school. They have nothing left in their tank. They need to replenish and refuel. So what they can do is set up. This helps me, I feel, with them with time management. But this way also, what it does, they'll set up, they might get their bowl of popcorn, they might get their music ready, they put out what they're going to work on, and then they walk away. So when it's time to get busy, they enter. They're not first doing it. It makes that entree much, much easier. And what a lot of my college students do, this is like as granular as it gets, is they will actually pull up their tabs the night before, like literally like, okay, what do you have to do tomorrow? I have to read my history. Great, pull it up. Math, pull it up. And therefore, when they get up the next morning, the tabs are there. It's sending them that message. Remember, what is that external communicator? You need to be doing this right now. Sorry, it's late. I'm making silly noises. Trust me, I'm a little bit punchy. I apologize, but that's what it is. And also I speak to students, so I do make noises, but that's what it is. What do I need to be doing right now? Oh, there it is. It's telling me. And there's buy-in, because if you realize, I'm not telling them to get to work. I'm telling them to set up their work. So this way, when they get up, it's there for them. Workflow priority, we talked about what comes first, what comes second, again, providing that roadmap. And here's an interesting one, and this is one that I've really honed into this year. It's scheduling the unscheduled. Particularly with students home, and I see this even in my own life, right? The boundaries are gone. Everything is blurred, right? What do we all keep saying? There's no weekends, right? Tuesday is Saturday, night is day. So what I have found is if I can bubble wrap, and I love that term because it's really visual. So I want you all to like picture what that means. If I can bubble wrap their unscheduled time, it makes them activate on other times. What do I mean by that? Perfect example. I have a student who's like, Leslie, by Friday, I'm done. Like, put a fork in me, I'm done. I'm like, okay, honor the done, honor it. Let's put a line through it, bubble wrap it, protect it. You're not going to work on Friday, but what does that mean for your other days? He's like, I'm good. If I know that I'm going to bubble wrap my Friday, I'm going to work my you-know-what off on Thursday. See? But if everything is mush, there's that whole like, oh, you know, if I don't do it today, I'll do it tomorrow, or I could do, we work backwards, where most people, and I'm not doing a scheduling or planning here, I wanted to bring this, because what most of us do is like, we schedule the things we have to do. Trust me, they do. But I spend a lot of time, particularly with my students, scheduling the unscheduled with them. I bring it differently. I'm like, where do you want time off? Now let's work on the time on. And it tends to give them, it tends to give a heck of a lot more buy-in that way. Again, not going to be for everyone, but I feel like this is something that I'm seeing a lot of success with, particularly in the past year. Roadmaps equal routines. If you hear me say that a lot, I feel that that's a really important thing. There's my path in the forest. Okay, body doubling. I'm thinking you guys have heard that term before. but I'll do a quick refresher about body doubling. It's when somebody else is anchoring you to the task. You don't have to be doing the exact same thing with them. So if you have a younger student at home and they are coming to find you, wanting to sit right next to you to get work done, please allow them to do so. What they're telling you is they need that body doubling. They need someone to act as a force field to keep them anchored and on task. It is not tutoring. It is not chatting. It's just being in their presence so that they can like, okay, I really want to get up, but having you is making me sit. A lot of my adults say they need this too. And again, it could be in person or as of now, as you can see on my screen, it can be virtually. And I'm going to say this, not every student, but a lot of my kids are working together and they are working and they are finding, again, great success because it helps to lighten that load. It acts as that external communicator. What should I be doing right now? This is just a resource that I love. It's called focusmate.com. If you don't have someone who is acting as an accountability, it has been vetted because I know when I talk about it with students, some people's antennas goes up. It's literally someone who will be on the other side of the video screen. You book like an hour appointment, you show up, and I do have kids who use it to get papers written, to study for exams, and it's cool. I'm just going to say that it's cool. People are vetted. It's legit. It's very legit. Okay, I want to talk about music. I'm a big believer in music if your student needs it. I get a lot of that pushback with parents in our group. I have my students make playlists. That's how I handle music. My older students might have different playlists for different subjects. So math might have something highly loud and engaging. Maybe English and social studies is soothing. But here I understand that we all like, playlists definitely help kids initiate. Listen, I'm a girl of the 80s. Give me all the disco and I'm getting my groove on, right? It helps me to motivate. But what music helps your child do, and I'm going to wrap it all the way back, is it helps them see done. Think about it. Your child listens to the same playlist, 37 minutes, 42, remember, nothing even. And they listen to that same playlist when they're working. And what your student says to me is this. Leslie, when I hear the Avett Brothers, I know I'm like halfway in. And when I hear Dawes, I know I'm in the home stretch. Do you see what they did there? That's a timekeeper. They see that beginning, middle, and then you can now also know what my music taste is, but that's the time there. That's it. They see done. Hey, I'm hearing Dawes. I know I'm in the home stretch. I'm going to pause, picture, and pace. I'm bringing it all back to the beginning because I believe that all of these things interconnect with each other. So if your child needs music, please have them do it with playlists and not just the Spotify switch up, which is what I think is truly distracting. Okay, one more and then I'm going perfect. I'm going to be done. I am all about the movement. For those of you who have ever heard me speak, I'm known as the math in the bath girl. I don't really care where your kid works as long as he's doing it. So right now, with us all being in the same place, we know that movement helps to lay down learning, right? It helps us to retain information. How many times have you had to memorize something, but moving is how it helped you solidify that information? But movement helps us to keep our focus up and helps us to sustain that effort. So I've got kids moving all over the house. If you have a little kid at home, you can play a game called Hide the Homework, where you or your caregiver can literally put homework in different places around the house. The crazier, the better. So I'm talking math in the bath, science on top of the toilet, English under the kitchen table. Who gives a you-know-what as long as they're doing it? Because it's fun. We've got to put some fun into this, particularly now, especially now. Pantry closet, master closet, back seat of the car, doesn't matter. Older kids, a little harder to do, but again, I have lots of kids that are just moving around the house because remember what I said, I'm doing math, I'm not doing math, I'm really not doing math, I need to move to another location. So I find that movement really also helps that distractibility piece because they're caught up in that moving around. And this is how I'm going to end. I actually have a free, I hate that word, free gift. I have a download for you that you can get from our site. So I'm all about tapping into your students' best practices. I am sure if you have multiple kids at home, one of your kids needs quiet, another kid needs loud tumult, craziness to get activated. Some kids like small, cozy spaces, some like wide open. Some like doing their homework the minute they walk in the door. Others don't like to start till later on. And on and on and on it goes. But if I was going to drill all of this down and give you one other big thing to think about, your students are looking for choice and control. And any way that you, because remember, a lot of what they are being asked to do is completely out of their control and choice, particularly our students. They're being asked to do things that are hard for them, that are not the way they think or the way they learn or the way they process information. So any way that I can give a student choice and control, that is a win. So I have this that I developed. It is a personal homework profile, and it basically is like a checklist of questions for your student to answer. And we refer to this all the time, and it really does help procrastination, because when I see my students fading, or I see them not remembering, or I see them having like their mojo just really like bottoming out, we refer back to this again and again so they remember, that's right, that's a tool I like to use, or oh, that's worked for me in the past. It is free on our site. You can get it. There's nothing you don't even need to give us. You can just get it on our site. Like there's nothing. I don't even think you need to give us your email for it. And another fun fact is I literally, even my college students, we do a new one every semester because things change. Okay, two quick things. Join our community. We would love to have you. It is chock full of great resources and information. And again, that's where you can find us. That is our website address and our email. And again, I invite you, if you are interested in receiving a free copy and entering the giveaway, just drop us an email and we will let 2 lucky winners. As we go to questions, I would love it. This is something that I love to do. If you could drop for me one thing in the chat that resonated with you, just one thing you were like, I like that, that was interesting, that was different, I hadn't heard that before, or something you think you're gonna like try out. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing. Can I see, if I stop sharing my screen, can I see the chat? Yeah, right, I can do that. No one's talking to me. There we go. Hi, everyone. Are we good? I can't hear anybody. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we
Okay.
can hear you.
All right. Let me just take a sip of my tea. All right, let me grab the chat. So again, oh wow, lots in the chat. Somebody asked if, somebody has COVID, be possible to get a copy of the video. Yes, right? The video is going to be up on the website. I just want to confirm that.
Yes, we're going to post it on the website.
Okay, all right. The movement, yes, importance of movement. Oh, you like the bubble wrap. I know, it's a great visual, right? And it's a little different. It's a little to work a little backwards, but I agree with that. Clocks. Think about, oh, that's funny, Cammie, because that was an afterthought. But yes, the think forward, think back. I know. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. The setup from the task, that's key. And that's something that I kind of am honing in on this year. It's a new thing for me. But even, we've got coaches here too that will tell you, right? We're all trying out new things, particularly this year, right? I feel like we've been, right? I'm looking at you, Andrea. Don't you feel like we have really been stretched to get creative? And yes, it has been, yeah, yes. So movement, that's why, like, throw your kid in the bath, like no water. I should have said that. No water, no water. But a lot of my kids actually like it. Because what they say is they put a pillow behind them. It's small, it's sensory seeking, right? It's comfortable, it's private, and they actually activate and engage. I mean, I know I didn't say like outside and all that, but I think we all know that, and we're rounding into the warmer weather as we get through the rest of this semester. Oh, thank you. The odd time. That's great. This makes me happy. I asked this question. It's for me personally as a speaker to figure out, like, I try to give a lot of tips. So if you all had said the same tip, then I know everything else I said didn't work. But the fact that everybody took something is good. Okay. The email is, okay, the email, if you'd like a copy of the book, you can do it to info@orderoochaos.com and just write book in the subject line, and we will pick 2 winners and email you. Okay, I don't understand that. Okay, anybody have any questions? We have to what, 9:15? So I have time for like 1 or 2 questions, right? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I'm looking. Maybe, oh, somebody has their hand up. Hi, Cammie. Do you want to ask it, Cammie? Do you want to put it in the, how do you guys work your meetings? Do you put your questions in the chat, or do you have people unmute?
Whatever works for you, Leslie.
Oh, I don't care. I'm easy
Yeah,
going.
Cammie, do you want to just unmute yourself and ask your question?
Sure. Hello, thank you so much for speaking today. I'm actually, excuse me, an adult who has ADHD, and so every time you said student, I would just refer to myself, just to connect my dots.
I understand. Okay.
And so I really liked what you said. Oh gosh, students don't understand what to do. So I have a particular paper clutter issue, and some of the paper clutter I do great, but some I don't understand. This was really good. I don't understand what to do. I take notes all the time, but they're all on the same pieces of sort of paper, and then the piles of paper get bigger, and they don't really go into their categories of. Anyway, I just wondered if you had any tips for adults regarding organizing paper.
Oof. That's a hard one, and I'm not shirking my responsibility of answering you. I'm really not, but I don't know you that well, and to say like, but what I like that you said was that you don't understand, and what I would like to say maybe is that, well, you don't understand what might possibly work for you. So do you see what I mean? Like what kind of tool works for you? So you're like, I don't know where those papers go. So maybe, again, I don't know you, and I would have to like really kind of dive in and figure out like what you've used in the past that's worked, or what you're possibly using now for something else that's working for you. What I took away from your question is, I'm trying to do it A, B, and C, and I'm thinking A, B, and C is not working. So it's the same way as like, why do I put a kid in the bathtub? Because sitting at a desk doesn't work for them, that more traditional way. Why am I setting a timer for odd amounts? Because an even doesn't work. So if I was working with you, I don't do that kind of work. I don't work with adults, but if I was to even coach you or say something, I'd be like, what are you doing in any way in your life that's similar, that is working for you? What strategy have you found, and can we build on that? And I would almost wonder, like, do you need to see it? Are you a revealer or a concealer? You seem like a revealer. Maybe you need to see everything out.
Yeah.
So maybe doing, organizing your papers where you can see them, but they're orderly, might work better for you than putting them away. So are you a revealer? Are you a concealer? Are you a piler? Are you a filer? Oh my God, that was just like, I'm sorry, I'm punchy. I just spoke, it's late, but it's okay. This is who I am. You might as well know it. So I would be asking yourself those questions, but I'd really be looking around and going, what is it that does work for me? How do I get my appointments made? I don't know if you work. How do I work? And why does that work? How do I get out the door in the morning? How do I remind myself to make a doctor's appointment? All of that will give you great intel.
Thank you.
Okay, so I don't know if I'm pronouncing, there's a question in the chat. So Shane, is it Shane? And if I'm not pronouncing it right, I apologize. He asks, I'm just keeping an eye on the time. What classroom strategies do you find successful for lower school children or in constant motion? So I actually am going to bring my own kid in here. So my kid was in constant motion and they kept going. And again, not disparaging anybody, but you know, the old way was to send them out of the room. And that was not working because he'd be gone for 20 minutes, come back, he'd miss things. One of the things, because I do some work in the schools, and one of the things that I am seeing for students in-person learning. So let's just pretend we're going to hopefully go back in the fall and we're all going to be back in person, is double desks. We are seeing a lot of double desking. I just made up a word. In the schools, in the classroom. And why a lot of schools are saying yes to it is it doesn't, to be blunt, it doesn't cost them anything. And what it is that there's maybe a desk for your student in, let's say, the front on this side of the room, and maybe there's a desk in the back. So when your child gets the wiggles and needs to get up, and I'm trying to give you something that's not as traditional as, you know, fidgets and sensory and all of that, is they can get up quietly and go to the back of the room where they might be able to hang off this chair, not sit as rigid as they might. But the double desking is big, and I don't know if other people know about that, but that's something and we're getting that written into, like, you know, even like accommodations. So I would try that. Okay, I have how is it possible to get, okay, I'm going to answer this question and then I think we're good. Is that okay? All right.
Yes.
How's it possible? I probably can't answer it, but I'll try. How is it possible to get back to work once one has been procrastinating? I feel that some weeks I do well and then I procrastinate only a little. It's difficult to get back into a rhythm. Here's where I would suggest, again, I don't know you and I don't know everything that's surrounding you, but this is where I would separate the task from, the setup from the task. Because that's how you're going to ease yourself back in. You're going to warm yourself up. I want you to go back to that whole, like, you know, it's kind of that exercise thing where people go, wait, I'm going to run 5 miles today. And then the next day they can't get out of bed, which is why, like, when I start small with a student, I'm like, you're going to work for 21 minutes. And they're like, but I can do more. I'm like, I don't want you to do more. I want to build there. So if you're having trouble re-engaging and re-entering, it's similar to that ritual. I want you to figure out a ritual that you're going to follow. Maybe it's lighting a candle in the room, doing something fun and inviting so you stay there and want to go there, and do the setup first. That's my advice.
Wow.
Okay, I think you're welcome.
Wow.
This was fun. You guys are awesome.
This was amazing and so chock full of ideas and suggestions and ways of conceptualizing, working with kids. I think we could talk about applying it to adults at some other time, because
Yes.
there's a lot here. There really is.
I was reluctant because I work with students, and I know you wrote that in that email, and I'm always very careful that I present what I say I'm going to present so nobody is disappointed. Do you know what I mean? But yes, I know that a lot of this can easily be, not all of it, but a lot of it can be applied to adults. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes. Oh, thank you so very much.
Oh,
I hope you will be willing to come back in the future.
of
Maybe
course.
we could really focus in on one of the specific topics, because there's just so much here.
I gave you this and the book, and I'm going to just give a quick shout out because Angie read it. I go, like, there's like real silos, if you know what I mean, and we go diving into each one. So I just kind of wanted to bring.
Excellent.
Thank you.
A must read.
Oh, thank you. You guys are awesome, really. You know, I really feel very welcomed. I really do, and I appreciate that you all showed up for me.
Yeah.
Thank
All
you.
right,
And
so
what else I'm
thank
gonna
you so
say-
much.
you. There's a lot of thank yous in the chat, so just check it out.
I am. Thank
And
you,
we'll
everyone.
see everyone either at a support group or at next month's speaker series.
Yes. Thank you
Okay.
again.
I'm gonna.
You guys have the Paramus one, which is my favorite, by the way. But I went to the one in New Haven, and they had clocks for $1.99. And last week, I did a time management webinar for my own community, and we just gave away clocks all night. Like, it was like Oprah, you get it, because they were, but IKEA sells them super cheap, super, super cheap. $1.99. I mean, I don't think you can.
Can't go wrong.
Oh, someone just wrote IKEA has super clocks. That's funny.
Yeah.
All right.
But nobody wants to leave, can you tell? So that's really such a compliment to you. It's
No, I'm so thrilled. Like listen, I think, and I said this to you at the beginning, I think right now, look, I think we're always looking for education, but I think this has been a year. I mean, obviously it's been a year like no other. And I think we're all just looking for anything we can. Even I am. I've been listening. I don't know, but I've been listening to other speakers, other coaches, other everything, just to be able to like bring back anything I can to my students and my community right now.
I'm learning more things about myself during this time as well. And in doing this work, I'm learning things about myself where I couldn't figure out how come I kept moving around the house. Like I'd sit for a week, I'd have my desk in one room, and then I couldn't get anything done anymore. And I'd move to a different room, and I'd work there for a while, and then I was like, okay. And I'd keep moving around the house. And then I realized what was going on.
Yeah.
And I just needed that re-stimulation.
Yep, I agree with you. I think we're all I feel like I've tapped way more into how I do things than my energy level and when I can get stuff done and when I can't. And so I'm on your page. We're not recording, right? But there are people still.
Wait,
Well, actually, we are.